Hello, you're welcome to Issues of the Moment. When we talk about Nigeria's economy, we often focus on business activities in the bustling cities. But the true backbone of our nation lies in its rural communities. Over 45% of Nigerians live in rural areas where agriculture, trade, and local enterprise sustain millions of families. Yet, these same communities bear the heaviest burden of poverty. Limited infrastructure, poor access to healthcare, inadequate schools, and few job opportunities keep too many rural households trapped in a cycle of hardship. The statistics are sobering. Rural poverty rates remain significantly higher than in urban centers. Many villages still lack reliable electricity, all-season roads, and clean water. But this is not a story of despair. It is one of untapped potential. Across Nigeria, rural entrepreneurs are creating solutions. Cooperative societies are improving access to finance. Agri-tech startups are connecting farmers directly to buyers. Development partners and government programs are investing in rural electrification and skills training. The question is, how do we scale these efforts and ensure no community is left behind? This will be our focus this week on Issues of the Moment, and in a moment you will meet my guest. My name is Justin Bemunyana. I welcome you to the program. Once again, thank you so much for joining us on the program Issues of the Moment. Today our focus is on tackling poverty at the grassroots. And my guest today is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Community Engagement, Abiodun Essiet. She will be giving us insights on this issue of tackling poverty at the grassroots. Well, I thank you so much for joining us on the program today and finding out time to come. I really appreciate your time with us.
Thank you for having me.
You're very much welcome. Let's immediately start, with your assignment of being the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Community Engagement. What does your office actually entail? What do you do?
Yeah, thank you so much. So for just the way it is, community engagement, we cover, there are about 6 of us. I cover the North Central region for Mr. President. That's from Kwara to Plateau and also FCT in addition. Majorly our work is to coordinate reports from the community, get feedback and impulses of the community concerning federal government interventions. And at the same vein, we also communicate federal government programs, policies and laws to members of the communities at different grassroots level for them to also share, like I said, share their feedback, their impulses, their own comments, evaluation concerning anything that has to do with federal government. And that's what we do. So we engage with different communities, organize stakeholders meeting, have deliberate dialogue with different people at different levels of community, some community of interest, community of geographical location, and to get feedback on anything that they have, specifically about concerns. So anything federal government intervention that has been done, we also communicate the implementation process to them as well to get their input about it. If they're having any difficulties with federal government interventions or program, or they have any issues at all, we document those concerns and send it to Mr. President and also members of Federal Executive Council. And at the same vein, also follow up with the response to let the committee know this is what has been done concerning your intervention, concerning the requests that you've made to any agency that has to do with federal government.
Okay, now by virtue of your area of coverage, the North Central, I understand, or I see that you're fortunate to be the host of the seat of power, Abuja.
Exactly.
But beyond the FCT, you have many rural communities scattered around, within your coverage area. How are you navigating to ensure that everyone beyond the FCT is a beneficiary of government programs and projects?
Okay, thank you so much. So North Central is quite big, and what we usually advocate to ministers and also heads of agencies to be very inclusive in terms of their project and intervention, and also to share concerns. For instance, there was a project, a program that Ministry of Youth wanted to do, and there was a feedback that was shared with our office that they were asking youths for CSC certificates and all that. That was a major challenge to some of the youth that are doing legit business, but they didn't have enough for money to actually procure a CSC certificate for their businesses because of the middlemen. So we had to also liaise with the CSC Registrar General and ask him to do a waiver for youth so that they are able to get their CSC register. So feedback like that is what we actually implement so that nobody is left behind. Because inclusivity is one of the major priorities of federal government, to making sure that we are not just setting up policies and programs for people who are already privileged. The most vulnerable people in the community should be able to access anything that has to do with federal government. But the reality on ground is the fact that the communities are not the same. So you can't compare big cities like Lagos to some of my cities in North Central region. There's a wide gap because you have more more infrastructure development, more telecommunication, more even Wi-Fi facilities around those communities. So for us, what we advise is, okay, there should be another alternative for rural communities or other undeserved communities to benefit from federal government interventions. Sometimes we ask some of them, it has to do with online. They should go to a business center. We'll employ some people to manage business center for them to help them to register so that there's nobody's left behind in terms of benefiting from federal government. So our own is to advocate to make sure that federal government agencies, federal government work and programs is inclusive for all. No committee is left behind. There was a time the Ministry of Internal Immigration and Ministry of Interior, they were trying to do some recruitment, and we found out that one of our local governments in Kogi was actually mixed. So within 24 hours, we actually reported to the minister, and that was corrected immediately. So those are the kind of feedbacks that we get, and making sure that everything that federal government is doing is inclusive to all in the process of implementing those projects, and make sure that there's inclusion and concerns of the most vulnerable people are actually captured.
Yeah, you've gone around in the course of your duty, maybe to collect data or have some reports in the grassroots or in the rural communities generally. Looking at the situation in these places, what would you say are the major drivers, of poverty in Nigeria today? Okay,
so no community is the same. Every community have different peculiarities, but I think it's just a basic need for every community to have basic amenities, basic infrastructure. Education should be equal for all, and the standard of those education should be the same. If I'm in Shandam, what's the level of teacher you give me, and my school facility in Shandam should be the same as in Etiosa 1 in Lagos State. If we can at that level, then we're working towards making sure that everybody has that opportunity to benefit equally. But that's not the case, because development is not the same way, and that's why we encourage governors and other tiers of government to cling into making sure that your development is according to the needs of your community. Not that Lagos is doing this, then Kaduna has to also have to do this, or because Lagos is going through this intervention, then my place, maybe Jos or Benue, will do the same thing. And that's why Mr. President set up the regional commission, so that a region can develop according to their peculiarities, according to their needs, according to their own concerns. You know what the data, the challenges you have, the infrastructural deficits you have. Like some places in some of my community in North Central don't have telecommunications. They can't even access that, and before they even call out to any community, they have to walk far away from that. And when you ask people from that community to go online and apply for a federal government loan, how do you want to make that thing easy for them? So it's about the infrastructure development. It's about knowing the gaps and working with other tiers of government to fill in those gaps. Infrastructure is one of them. Digitalization is also one of them, because those are basic needs. Education is also one of them. Every schools are free, but the standard of the schools are very different. And it's not every, so federal government takes care of federal universities, tertiary institution, but the state government takes care of the secondary education. The local government takes care of the local education, but it's not the same. Because what you see and the kind of trainers, the kind of teachers you see, or the standard of the school you see in some rural community is far, far different from what you see in an urban community. But if we can make those basics, amenities equal, so that you don't have to, people in the rural community don't have to leave their rural area to go to their urban to go and learn. If we know that, yes, so the primary healthcare facility in your local community is the same thing as the one you have in Abuja, then we are working towards making sure that development is inclusive. But that's not the real case. And that's why Mr. President has set up this regional commission. For each region should drive their own development based on their own reality. So we're expecting, for instance, North Central Development Commission to go through the North Central. What are the peculiarities? What are our challenges? Insecurity is one of it. Infrastructural development is one of it. We have good topographies like in Plateau, which is also not helping. Some you don't have telecommunication. Some there is an hideout to kidnappers and all that. Then road is also one of the major problems. So you have to learn to address your own development, and it's based on your reality. And that's what I expect the regional commission to do. Not just to sit and not do as if they are now another tiers of government, but to make sure that they make the gaps visible and address the gaps in the development. Channel resources towards addressing the gaps, so that everybody in every region can develop at the same way. Let me take, for instance, in China. The rural community have even better Wi-Fi than even the urban communities. And they've actually changed the way the corporation, the farmers operate. When they saw that, the way they're building houses were not good, they demolished it, work together to build a skyrise for everyone, so that everybody will be carried along, so that, the development is not just channeled to, it's not only in the big city that you see skyrise, but, the smaller cities are also growing at the same level by addressing their own concern. They know that, these people like cooperative, they like staying together like family, and they strengthen that family union to promote their cooperation, to promote their family, to promote their development. And I think that's what we are meant to do in Nigeria, for us to focus our intervention, focus our needs based on our reality. You don't just build a bridge because you want to build a bridge. You build a bridge, you address a need. Maybe there's a traffic at this joint, maybe there's a big flow of vehicles at this particular point, then you build a bridge. But now you see politicians just building a bridge just to show that they have done
for economic reasons.
It should be done for economic reasons and based on research. You don't just do things based on because you just want to do it, but you have to do a research. You have to have a flow of movement. They should have given you a flow of movement and say, this is the reason why you need to construct a bridge, so that it will make movement easier to people, or it will reduce the time of moving from one point to another. So I think our development should be research based. Our development should be particularly to address the needs and concerns of our people, not just about just trying to fulfill a manifesto, rather than just doing a project, but based on research.
Okay, from your response now, it's now clear that reduction of poverty is directly tied to the level of infrastructural development that also answers need-oriented infrastructural development. Now, in all this, which you have pointed that there is need for upgrading this infrastructural development at par, or it should be at a level at which it meets even the urban areas. In the rural areas, there should be some kind of being at par. One thing we're forgetting here is that in the immediate, it is very clear that agriculture remains like a major money spinner across the globe today, and this is like a major asset for this particular demography or this particular area, the rural dwellers. They have, or they grab agriculture in abundance. It is an advantage to them because of the land and the fertility and everything there. Yet poverty is loud in these areas. What is that missing link? What is that gap? Where is that gap coming from?
A whole lot of issues are connected to that. You know, our major produce come from the rural community, and they are still the poorest of the poor, because we are not, we don't value the value chain, and we don't empower people in that process. What is wrong in somebody in the rural community? We have a good roads, access good roads. You can be able to transport your goods. For instance, if I'm a farmer in Jos has fresh crops, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. So if I should harvest around 4 a.m., I should be able to take it to some of the big hotels in Abuja. But where is the infrastructure? Thank God Mr. President has given approval for them to do the Akwanga Jos Bauchi Road. Now that will be done. It should just take you about 4 hours for you to move from Jos, because Jos have perishable because of their climate, because of their weather. They have good crops that people want to eat fresh. But the farmers they're also referring to, they don't have coolant. They don't have any facility to even keep their products fresh. So it just spoils before noon, and and they're not empowered to even have to develop themselves. Cooperative wise, I think it's also a major way to invest in that in terms of building their capacity of farmers. But the reality of the farmers that you have here is we lack infrastructure. They don't know how to manage the value chain to improve themselves. For instance, I will also keep referring to China. A rural farmer in China will harvest his crops, go online, snap a picture on Instagram, on their own WeChat, sells that product to another village shop or to another big shop, before you know it, and have good people who can deliver vans, who have access to them, take it, so they have value for their money. But how many of our farmers can use our digital online platform, online banking system? How many of them? Thank God for OP, and thank God for other Pensa and other online payment platform that makes it easy. But how many of our local farmers can actually sell their products from their farm and get a good price for it? They would rather rely on the middleman who will buy it in box and ship it out, or find a way to export it and get a better price for it. But the facility and infrastructures are not there. The digital communications are not there for them. Some of the farmers don't have access road to even transport their crop. And a major issue is now the insecurity, where some of our farmers cannot even stay to even, plant their crops and harvest their crop, safe. I jokingly, chat about this, that before you give me a tractor in North Center, give me a tractor with a machine gun. Because that's some of the realities that you have. You need to actually protect. We can't do more, because once the insecurity is not addressed, development can't come. So for you to even empower our farmers, you also need to think about their security and protect them in the process. Now, NADA is doing a big thing, making sure that their farms are fenced. Their farms have generators. Their farms have necessary facilities. If now there is a government institution, understand the peculiarities of any environment, and that's what we're saying. Understand the peculiarity, and how do we want our farmers to gain. So what NADA is doing, also putting our farmers in cooperative, so that you farm, you have access to people who will buy the product, and in the same way you're empowering them, giving our farmers also the necessary facilities or the necessary equipment they need is also one of the major things. I noticed when I last visited Nasarawa, I saw some tractors moving around. So there are tractors available that people can actually rent to speed their farming, their farming process, and which is in turn empowering the community. So I think government should also, different levels of government should also embrace that, to see how do we empower our farmers in the process of farming, so that we don't keep recycling poverty. We empower them, make sure that they are capable enough to farm, and they're also capable enough to sell their products, even to middlemen, at a very good price. And there's food security in the whole process. So the empowerment of farmers and the value chain of that process should be. And why are our youth not going into farming? Because they have not seen more benefit of it. But when you have youths who are in the villages helping the farmers to help sell their products online and make money for themselves, and also in the same process you see value in farming, people will now want to learn, you can actually, because this is what they are doing in other developed countries. You don't wait for somebody, you sell your product, you advertise your product, and you see a lot of people bargaining for it. You get good price for it. And when we have necessary backup from government agency, where you have, how many of those governments have a place where you can storage place for perishable goods? But most of our potatoes or most of our tomatoes spoils before noon. But how many of our governors can say, okay, we have set up a tomato paste company. Before your tomato spoils, when you know you can't sell your tomato as fresh as it is, bring it to this particular point. We'll process it into another. So the value chain of farming product needs to be studied, and also building more infrastructure, building more industrial companies, so that we can think of, okay, what are the issues with our farming system, what are the challenges, then you provide an alternative. Is it watermelon? Some of the watermelon gets spoiled. Okay, do we think of sending it to another industry that makes watermelon juice, or turn into another product? So later on, the value chain is strengthened, and we are empowering our local farmers in the whole process.
Having had these ideas in place, you know, from your position as a special advisor, and from your experience, you just mentioned some countries, maybe China and other countries, who embrace some of these initiatives of maybe improving the farmers, how they sell, how they market, or how they go about some of their businesses. What have you done to maybe develop these initiatives into programs that will benefit these rural communities? Maybe sell this out to maybe the Ministry of Agriculture or any relevant ministries, that they can buy this and develop it further for the benefit of the rural communities. Okay,
so just following my own terms of reference, my own terms is just to engage and also share feedback. So what we do is also advise some of these the stakeholders like the governors and also the minister, just to share our observation. We do that regularly. For instance, I just left in Nasarawa on the spot assessment in Nasarawa local government, which report will be shared soon, on what is going on in that area. And we've shared our report to the NEMA, and they've taken up and responding to the report, and so assessments will be done, intervention will be deployed. Ministry of Humanitarian has also received a report and said intervention. So that's what we do. We advise when necessary, and also share, because we are not an intervention program office. We don't carry out intervention, but what we do is to assess services and promote public services so that it's efficient and effective, and that's what we do. So we just advise. We are in advisory role and also monitoring role. But you know, when ideas comes like this, we also share with stakeholders so that they know what to do, and when they need our assistance, they know what to do.
Okay. Now, in your opinion, what policy changes do you think are most urgently needed to unlock rural economic growth?
Okay, so it's something we are working on from the Community Engagement Office that's called the Stakeholders Engagement Framework. Because we believe for any policy to really be effective, the people that are concerned with those policies should be carried along from the planning stage of any policy to the implementation. Because what we see majorly in some of those policies that, you know, you just see some consultants or some academics, you know, sit down in a big office with AC, write a policy paper, write that this is what Nigeria is supposed to do. Well, it's meant to address the needs of a particular people. So we believe for community engagement, bottom-up approach to governance, in terms of anything we want to do as a government agency, the people that are affected, the stakeholders that are involved should be carried along. We don't have to evaluate them based on their educational background on them, but because they are a major player. For instance, you saw how our cashless policy failed out. Because we didn't carry a little man, the man in the small and medium scale enterprise, we didn't carry them along in terms of, oh, what do they do? What are they supposed to do? What are their roles in it? We didn't carry them along. And that was why it failed up from even the word go. So if, for instance, you are doing a policy and you said, okay, market seller, we said everything will be cashless. So that means you have to learn to use POS. But those people were not carried along. Every day we just went into that and said, no, now there's cashless policy. People who are meant to implement that are not carried along. If we have told them from to say, no, this is how my business is. So, for instance, you can't start cashless policy. Me, I don't know. Then we'll start a program about training small and medium scale enterprise on how to use online platform, how to set up things like OPay, how to set up their platform, digital platform to get payments. We'll have started that rather than going straight into say, okay, Nigeria is going to cashless policy. Then you just focus on that, transfer everybody. There's no cash. So that's how policy feels. But our own ideology about any policy and performance is to make sure that the people who are concerned, who are affected by a policy should, because no matter how beautiful a policy is, Nigeria, we are very good in writing policies and position papers.
Well, just briefly, just in 1 minute before I let you go, your final word, before you go, if you could implement one major change tomorrow, to reduce rural poverty, what could that be? Just briefly.
One major project. I think it's about digital empowerment. Because it's a solid, you can't go wrong with it, and you don't need any level of education to understand digital platform. You can learn it. It's more beautiful now. You can learn it in local languages, and you can actually use your voice to actually learn it. I think that is very important. But to achieve that, that means we need to have digital connectivity across every nooks and cranny of this country, which is not so. So we need to empower and develop, put more emphasis on the development, digital development across, setting up digital infrastructure across where we have telecommunication platforms across every nook and cranny. I think that's the basic. It's not like a basic human right. That basic human right. Once you have that, you can actually make yourself richer. A lot of people have become billionaires just by laughing, just by changing things on Instagram. Yeah. The small guy that you use the video, when he laughs anyhow, that guy is a billionaire because a lot of people use his video. So no matter how poor you are, you can actually change your life when you're empowered digitally, when you understand how to use digital platform. So that digital infrastructure is important for me. I think every state should embrace that to make sure that there's digital connectivity for their citizens and nobody is left behind.
So the call now has gone back to the government to work on digital infrastructure now for the citizens to embrace digital entrepreneurship. Well, thank you so much, Abiodun Essiet, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Community Engagement North Central. We can appreciate you enough for your time.
Thank you.
On the program.
Thank you for having me.
You're very much welcome. Well, this is Issues of the Moment, and we've been talking on tackling poverty at the grassroots. And as you well know, our guest has been the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Community Engagement North Central, Abiodun Essiet. This is where the program ends. I thank you so much for your time with us. My name is Justin Bemunye, and I say bye for now.